I never thought I'd be betrayed by my own mother-in-law. Not like this. I served 7 years in uniform, carried gear on my back, grit in my teeth, and my marriage tucked inside every folded letter I sent home. Nathan was my reason to survive, to come back. And when my discharge papers were signed, all I could think about was seeing him again, us again. I bought his favorite bourbon on the way home. I wore the earrings he gave me before deployment. I even called his mother to say I was on the road. She didn't pick up, but when I opened the door to our house, my house, something was off. There were new shoes at the door, a strange voice laughing in the kitchen, and Nathan. He looked like a man who'd already moved on. Instead of a homecoming, I walked into a replacement. They didn't know I'd be back that soon. They didn't know I already knew. They thought I'd salute and leave quietly. They were wrong. This isn't just a story. It's a reckoning. Stay with me. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because I know I'm not the only woman who came home to find herself erased. When I first walked through that front door, I didn't even realize I was holding my breath. I had pictured this moment for months. Nathan meeting me at the door, arms wide open. Maybe that old nervous laugh he always had when he got overwhelmed. Instead, I stepped into silence, the kind that hangs in the air like dust. There was music playing, something soft and jazzy. A woman's voice floated from the kitchen. Then I saw her blonde, tall, overly comfortable. She was barefoot, wearing one of Nathan's old college sweatshirts, the kind I used to sleep in. She didn't flinch when she saw me, just smiled like she'd been expecting someone, just not me. I stood there with my duffel bag still slung over one shoulder, sweat from the road sticking to my back, and all I could manage was, "Is Nathan home?" Before she could answer, he walked in from the back patio holding a drink, wearing a look I'd never seen on his face before. Guilt, panic, no. It was worse than that. It was indifference. "Savannah," he said, flat. "You're early." That was it. No hug. No, I missed you. Just a 4-syllable summary of how inconvenient my presence was. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at the woman again. She didn't introduce herself, didn't leave the room. She leaned against the counter and sipped her wine like I was just another guest passing through. Nathan finally walked over, took my bag off my shoulder, and set it on the floor. "You should have called first," he added. That's when I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a one-night mistake. This was arranged, calculated. I said nothing. My training kicked in, don't react, assess. I scanned the room like a combat zone. Pictures were missing, a new throw blanket on the couch, a new toothbrush on the sink. She'd been here a while. I made it through the night in silence, sat through dinner while Nathan and his mother, yes. She showed up like nothing was wrong, chatted about the weather, Lena's amazing pecan pie, and how settled everything felt lately. They talked like I was background noise. Joanne never looked me in the eye. But I caught her smirk when I got up to wash my plate. She said, "You've always been tidy, I'll give you that." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my back in the guest room, yes. The guest room staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked with every slow turn. I'd faced worse. I'd slept in barracks with mice. I'd had sand in my ears for weeks at a time. But this was personal. They'd prepared for my absence. They'd planned my replacement. What they didn't know was that I'd known for months, 6 months before my discharge. I got an email from Joanne. She meant to send it to someone named Lena Whitfield at Gmail, but she sent it to me. Maybe because my address was once next to Lena's in some outdated family contact list. It was short. "Make sure she's ready by August. Nathan needs a fresh start. Savannah won't be back until October at the earliest." That's when I started making plans. I never replied, never confronted. I let them keep digging their grave. I let them think they were smart enough to outmaneuver me, but I documented everything. Every message, every change in the house deed, every account I quietly moved back into my name because I didn't need to scream, I didn't need to cry, I just needed to wait. So that's what I did. The next morning, I was up before the sun, Old habits die hard. I brewed my coffee quietly, the way I did on base. Every movement methodical. I didn't need caffeine. I needed clarity. Nathan came downstairs around 7:30, barefoot and casual, as if nothing had changed. He didn't ask how I slept, didn't even look surprised that I was still there. He just poured himself a glass of orange juice, opened the fridge, and said, "You want eggs?" My marriage had just been amputated, and he was offering me breakfast. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Who is she?" I asked. He paused, just a second too long. "Lena," he said. "She's been helping out. Since your mom got sick and you extended your tour, she stepped up, as if she'd been handed a medal for loyalty while I was still out there counting sandstorms and care packages. She's your cousin." I said. "Second cousin. Technically. Doesn't that bother you?" He shrugged. "Not really. We're not blood. Besides, Mom's always liked her." There it was. The truth beneath the mess. Joanne had orchestrated this. The woman who never liked the way I carried myself, who once told me I walked like a man, had finally found her moment. And Nathan weak-spined. Nathan just let it happen. She got him when I wasn't there, filled his head with sweet lies, soft hands, and fresh-baked pies. Meanwhile, I was running night patrols and jumping at the sound of every desert wind. He thought I'd come home broken. He thought I wouldn't notice, but I had noticed long before I ever stepped through that door. When that email came through 6 months earlier, it confirmed every instinct I hadn't dared say out loud. I'd started collecting everything, every message, every shared account password, every paper trail. I changed security questions, reverted property titles back to my name because the house had been mine before we married, a gift from my aunt. Nathan never asked to be added, and I never offered. A part of me must have always known. By noon that day, I had already called my lawyer. By 300 p.m., she had the first draft of the eviction notice ready, and at 5:15, while Nathan and Joanne were busy helping Lena set the table, I left a sealed envelope on the dining room chair, right where Joanne liked to sit. She opened it mid-salad. It was quiet at first, just the sound of papers rustling and her knife hitting the plate. Then came the gasp, then the tightening of her voice. "What is this?" she said. I looked at her calmly. "Notice to vacate. You have 30 days. Nathan's fork dropped. "Savannah, what the hell? I own the house," I said. "Always have. You knew that. This?" I gestured to the whole meal, was all staged, and I let it play out. Joanne looked pale. "You wouldn't dare I would," I said, and I just did. She stood up, hands shaking, knocking over her glass. "You can't do this to me. I'm your mother-in-law." "No," I said, my voice low and clear. "You're the woman who tried to erase me while I was still alive. That ends today." Nathan didn't speak. He looked at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Lena was already halfway to the door. I sat back in my chair, picked up my fork, and finished my meal. Because that's what you do when you've already won. You eat, you breathe, you move forward. They thought I'd come home broken, but I came home ready. And now, there was nothing left to say. Joanne didn't leave quietly. That would have been too dignified. She cried the next morning, full-on sobbing in the living room like someone had died. Maybe, in her mind, someone had her control, her image, her illusion of being the matriarch of a family that wasn't hers to run anymore. She tried guilt first. "I gave this family everything," she said, voice thick with tears. "I helped raise Nathan while his father was overseas. I was the one who cleaned up the house, made the holidays special, cooked when nobody else could be bothered. You weaponized kindness." I said flatly, "You never gave anything without expecting obedience in return." She blinked, caught off guard by the calm. I'd been trained to stay calm when chaos breaks loose. That's why I didn't flinch when she switched to rage. "You'll die alone." She spat. "No children, no legacy, just bitterness." I smiled then. Not because it didn't hurt, but because her venom no longer had teeth. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who only value me when I'm useful to them. Nathan stayed quiet through all of it, like a child watching two adults fight, unsure which side he should stand on, but I wasn't asking him to stand on either. I had already taken care of myself. By day 3, Joanne packed her things. She tried to leave dishes accidentally unwashed, left a garbage bag on the porch, turned off the thermostat, but I didn't react. I folded the laundry, took out the trash, reset the thermostat. One day after she left, I changed the locks. Nathan didn't say a word, just sat on the porch, staring out at the road like he expected her to come back. He didn't follow her. He didn't defend me either. He just sat there between two worlds he helped build, but never had the spine to protect. I let him stay, for a while, mostly out of curiosity. I wanted to see if the man I married was still somewhere under the dust. He tried, in his own quiet way, brought home takeout, offered to repaint the hallway, asked about my work schedule like we were starting over. But starting over only works when both people acknowledge what broke. And he wouldn't. He never once apologized for letting her in, for standing by while she filled his head with doubts, let Lena slip into my clothes, sit in my chair, speak my name like it was something expired. He just wanted to move past it, pretend it had all been a misunderstanding. It wasn't. So one Saturday morning, I slid a folder across the kitchen table inside a finalized divorce agreement, signed and dated. He didn't even look shocked, just nodded slowly and said, "You already planned this, didn't you?" I held his gaze. 6 months ago, when she sent me that email, he looked down. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't answer, because that wasn't true. You don't accidentally betray someone. You either fight for them or you let them rot in the background. And I had rotted long enough. We didn't argue. There were no dramatic goodbyes. He packed a bag, kissed me on the forehead like I was an old memory, and left before noon. I stood in the doorway and watched the dust settle behind his car. Then I closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled like I hadn't in years. The house was still. Not empty still. It felt sacred. It felt mine. I spent that week cleaning, rearranging, reclaiming every inch. I burned candles, opened every window, repainted the guest room. I cut my hair short, bought new towels. People talk about heartbreak like it ends you, but sometimes it just returns you to yourself. It didn't happen overnight, but the silence turned into peace. I started waking up without bracing for tension. I stopped checking the mailbox like it might explode with another bitter letter. I learned to breathe in this new life not as someone's wife or someone's disappointment, but just as myself. I took a job at the port, running logistics. It wasn't glamorous, but it was structured, clean, reliable. 3 things I hadn't felt in years. My coworkers called me ma'am, even though I told them not to. I liked it, secretly. Not out of ego, but because it reminded me that respect could exist without manipulation. A few weeks after the divorce finalized, I got a call from Sandra Nathan's sister. We hadn't spoken in a long time. She was always quiet, distant, never really picked a side. She said, "I heard what happened with Mom, with Lena. I just wanted you to know I never believed what they said about you. I didn't say much back, just thanked her." Then she added, "You were the only one who never asked for anything. You just gave." It hit harder than I expected, because when someone finally sees you after years of being overlooked, it feels like a door unlocking inside your chest. That same week, I found a box on my porch, no return label. Inside was a framed photo from my wedding, the original, not the one Joanne had cropped me out of for the living room, just me and Nathan, laughing, real and young. Tucked behind the frame was a handwritten note in Nathan's handwriting. "You didn't deserve what happened. I wasn't strong enough to stop it. I see that now. No apology, just recognition. It was enough. I didn't reach out, didn't text, didn't invite conversation. Closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just knowing they finally understood what they did. I kept the photo, not because I missed him, but because that version of me deserved to be remembered. The girl who thought love was loyalty, the woman who learned it also had to be mutual. Joanne never contacted me, but I heard through the grapevine that Lena left Nathan after a few months. Apparently, real life wasn't as glamorous as playing house with someone else's husband. She moved out quietly, took her wine glasses and her fake sweet laugh with her, and Joanne. She went to live with her sister in Georgia. Sandra said she complains every day, claims no one appreciates what she's sacrificed. I bet she still believes that. But me? I was done writing chapters for people who never read mine. Instead, I focused on building something new. I turned the guest room into a workshop, started making hand-bound journals, simple leather covers, stitched pages. Nothing fancy, but real. A few people at work asked where I got mine. I sold the first 5 within a week, then 10 more. One day, a woman in her 60s bought one and said, "I haven't written about my life in 20 years, but this makes me want to start again." I smiled and said, "Then it's already done its job." Sometimes I sit on my porch in the evening, coffee in hand, and watch the sun fall behind the tree line. It's quiet here, and I like it that way. There are no loud opinions, no forced smiles, no rooms that feel too small for the truth. Just me, the woman they thought they could replace. The woman who came back too early for their plans and exactly on time for her own. Some people think revenge is about loud exits and burned bridges, about slamming doors so hard the world hears it, but real revenge, it's quieter than that. It's sitting in a house they thought you'd abandon, sleeping soundly in a bed they tried to strip from under you, laughing in a kitchen they once claimed didn't feel like yours. Revenge is building a life that doesn't need their validation, only your own permission. 6 months after Nathan left, I planted a row of rose bushes along the back fence. I dug every hole myself, dirt under my nails, sweat stinging my eyes. It hurt. My back ached for days. But when those first buds opened in the spring, I stood there barefoot in the grass and cried, not because I was sad, but because they bloomed. Despite everything neglect, cold soil, and a broken start, they bloomed anyway. Like me. I don't talk about Joanne much anymore. She's just a chapter I've closed, a name I don't need to carry. But sometimes, her voice still echoes in small ways when I make the wrong kind of pie or forget to iron something, that inner critic she tried to tattoo onto my soul. The difference now, I don't listen. Nathan reached out once more. It was short. A text. Just said, "I'm sorry. I see it all now." I never replied, because forgiveness isn't always owed. Sometimes, closure is just silence and peace. Peace is waking up in your own skin without flinching. It's drinking coffee with both hands and knowing no one's about to snatch it from you. It's choosing your own furniture, your own music, your own damn candles. I keep a journal now. One of the ones I hand-stitch myself, it's filled with things I used to be too tired to admit, thoughts I buried beneath performance and obligation. The truth is, I spent years believing love meant endurance. That to be chosen, I had to stay useful, palatable, quiet. But I'm not quiet anymore. I'm a woman who saw the ambush coming and refused to die in the field they dug for her. I'm a woman who came home to a war she didn't start, but finished with grace and fire. I still walk with that same steady posture they once mocked. Still fold my laundry the way the army taught me. Still check every exit when I walk into a room. But now I do it for me, not because I'm afraid, but because I know how strong I had to become to survive what was supposed to be home. To anyone listening who's been erased, replaced, or made to feel like an afterthought. You are not disposable. You are not less worthy because someone else couldn't see your value. And if they pushed you aside, maybe it's because you were never meant to stand in their shadow. Maybe you were always meant to outgrow them and bloom. So take your time. Unpack the silence. Reclaim your space, inch by inch. And when you do, don't look back. Because this story, it didn't end when they left. It started the moment I stopped asking to stay. If this story touched something in you, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, because someone out there needs to know they're not alone. You're not the only one who had to fight for your peace, And trust me, it's a battle worth winning. Sometimes the greatest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who sat at our table, called us family, and smiled while pushing us out. But there's a powerful truth in that kind of loss when others stop choosing you. It's your chance to finally choose yourself. This story reminds us that peace isn't given, it's claimed. You don't need to fight with fists or words. Sometimes, the strongest response is silence. A signed document, a locked door, or a rose blooming where no one expected growth. For those of us in our later years who've endured quiet disrespect or years of being overlooked, this is your reminder. It's never too late to reclaim your space, your voice, your joy. You're not too old to start over. You're just wise enough now to know what's worth keeping and what's better left behind. And that clarity, friend, is freedom.